welcome to Slasher Sunday. So I actually just recorded like a 15-minute rant about how Paris Hilton isn't anywhere near as bad as people think she is. And I will touch upon this. And I also talked about Chad Michael Murray and how he's not convincing enough to be a tough guy. And I went on a rant way too long about both of those things. And then right in the middle of it, I was just like, you know what? This is too much. No one wants to fucking hear me rant that much about these two kind of inconsequential things. So I'll try to give you a Cliff's Notes versions of them really quick. First, starting off with the Paris thing. I feel like people harp on this whole Paris Hilton thing in this movie. Anytime this movie is brought up, the Paris Hilton talking point is immediately addressed. Like, oh, Paris Hilton's in this, and that immediately taints the movie, and I hate her, and, well, the good thing is at least we get to watch her die. Okay, making a long story short, Paris Hilton in this movie, if you were to disconnect your dislike for who she actually is, which I honestly, that's your own opinion. You got your own thing, whatever. That's your thing to do. She is a very attractive lady who gives a fine performance. It doesn't really call for anything more than that. She's the, archetype of the slutty character for a slasher movie. And for that role, she plays it perfectly fine. There's nothing in this movie, like if she wasn't Paris Hilton, if you had no connection to her name, if you didn't know who she was, you'd just be like, oh, another hot chick who dies in the movie. And her performance is nothing to write home about, and it's nothing to draw attention to both either negatively or positively. It's just, yeah, she was fine. She's just she's just a piece in a larger part to the whole. And it's like, I don't know, it's funny to me that she always gets brought up in this, and I'm like, I could understand if she was just awful, like Sky Ferreira was in Eli Roth's Green Inferno. You want to see a terrible performance for somebody who wasn't an actor, who was trying out their hand at it? Holy shit, man. And all it was just a little conversation she had with her friend before she went on this, eco-terrorist, anti-movement kind of thing. It's been a little while since I've seen that movie, but I remember her friend talking to her in Sky, who I knew previous. I thought she was a very beautiful young artist, and I was like, oh, she's gonna be in this movie, how cool. And I saw her and I was like, oh man, you might never want to act again, this is just horrid. So when I watched Paris in this, I'm just sitting there laughing because I'm like, she is totally fine, and she's only getting hated because of the fact that she's Paris Hilton, which is silly to me. It's like when people hate on Tom Cruise because he's a Scientologist, even though most of those people can't even name one bad Tom Cruise movie, ever. Outside of The Mummy, which I feel like now they have the one movie to go to. But before that, it was just like, name a bad Tom Cruise movie. Name a movie that you've seen with Tom Cruise that you didn't like. And they're like, well, I just don't like him. And I'm like, but you like every movie he's in. And you go see almost every movie he's in. It's just ridiculous. So hating on someone just because of who they are in real life is fucking silly to me. So, all right, moving on from the Paris Hilton thing. But imagine if she wasn't Paris Hilton and she still gave the exact same performance and she looked exactly how it is. Now, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, obviously. So you can be like, ew, I don't find her attractive at all. She thinks she looks like an ugly skank, whatever. Okay, that's fine. That's your opinion, of course. I still think you're being biased. I think you're attaching it to Paris Hilton's name. But regardless, if you don't think she's attractive, that's fine. But her performance in this, even if you don't think she's attractive, is totally fine. For what it's calling for, she's fine. So what's the issue? Yes, you don't like her in real life, but how about in the movie? In the movie, she's fine. She's someone who, if you wasn't Paris Hilton, you wouldn't even think twice about. I mean, outside of masturbating to her later because you found her attractive or something, or going back and whatever. But you know what I mean. You wouldn't think about her performance. You'd be like, why did they put that girl in this movie? She's horrible. She was fine. Anyways, okay, moving on. Chad Michael Murray being tough. See, I've said in the past that, and I'll always stay true to this, but in a movie, it's about selling the audience visually on what we know as kind of traits of toughness. It doesn't even have to be even slightly true. You can take an actor who just looks intimidating, like The Rock. I don't know if that guy can fight at all. I don't know anything. I mean, I've seen that he can wrestle, but, I don't know how much he could actually hold himself up in a real God-honest fight. Like a bar fight with, or in the UFC, how about that? In the UFC ring. I don't know how he would do in those situations at all. So I don't know what his ability is. But he looks like a badass fucking guy. He looks like somebody who could just break you in half without any effort at all. And that immediately, makes me be like, oh yeah, this guy's badass. And so when I watch this with Chad Michael Murray, I mean, who knows? I don't know anything about the guy. He could fucking have, a black belt in whatever damn fucking martial art and be the most badass guy in the world. But just because of his physical look and his physical presence in the movie, I'm like, you're Justin Timberlake in Alpha Dog trying to look tough, and it's just not working. That being said, I still really like his character, and I still really like what he does in the movie, and he is a badass in the movie. It's just that Chad Michael Murray, One Tree Hill Chad Michael Murray, just ain't selling me on the fact that he's a tough guy. And so it's I don't know, it's almost conflicting in my head of like, well, I feel like his character is badass, but maybe just miscasted, but he does a good job. So I feel like I'm being hypocritical by judging Paris Hilton, not judging her for her, and then judging Chad Michael Murray for who he is. But I'm just looking at him as a physical presence within the film, and I just can't take him seriously as a tough guy. That said, as I said in contradiction, I do feel like his character at least is written, and he does a good enough performance for me to be like, hell yeah, kick ass, man, go for it. So, I don't know. I took martial arts classes, and the one instructor I remember came in the class, and I was like, dude, kindergarten's over there. And there was a bunch of people in that class that were, that looked tough, that looked like freaking guys that you would never want to fuck with a million years. And the toughest guy in the room was that kid that I thought was, late for freaking his orientation for his first day of like third grade. So you never know who's actually badass and who isn't. But on screen, we want an Arnold Schwarzenegger. We want a Sylvester Stallone. We want somebody who looks like they could beat you up just by their physical presence. It doesn't make any difference on if they can actually fight. Now, you want that kind of stuff, you go over to Asian cinema, then those guys actually know how to fight. But over here in good old America, we like our guys to look tough. All right, anyway. So we got Sam Winchester here from Supernatural, which he does not play as big of a role in this movie as I had thought he would, which is kind of cool. We got Eliza Cuthbert here, which I personally know from 24 as Kim Bauer. Big 24 fan. I've mentioned that on the channel a lot of times. And this is the director of The Shallows, which I just reviewed in place of Slasher Sunday last week, which is kind of ironic. I just realized that. He also directed a ton of Liam Neeson movies recently, and he did the movie The Orphan, or Orphan, I think. I don't think there's a the before, but good movie. Esther has kind of gained some popularity as one of the more recognizable evil kids in movies. Although if you know the twist of the movie, you know that's not actually correct. But I won't say anything else on that in case you haven't seen it. All right. So Chad Michael Murray's character in this is Alicia, Alicia Cuthbert's brother, and he's this total fuck up who blames everything on everybody else. Although later in the movie we find out that his buddy, the total idiot, Bobby from Scary Movie, is actually the one who stole the car and was driving, but Chad took the fall for it because he already had a bad record and his buddy didn't. So we find out that he's got a heart of gold and that he's, been misunderstood for years. But as I said, I really did like his character in this, because there's a lot of moments in this movie where I had some like fist pumping moments with him. Like, fuck yeah, man, kick his ass. So good on him. Good on the character and the way it's written in this. Now, the gore in this movie is pretty fantastic. This is something I very much remember. And this is a kick-ass slasher flick. Like, I feel like because Paris Hilton is attached to this movie, it kind of just gets swept under the rug. As, okay, but most people I talk to who have seen it and gave it a chance and can, either look past the Paris Hilton thing or don't have an issue with her at all, like myself, really enjoy the hell out of this one. So I do think that this is mostly enjoyed. But I look at the IMDb rating, which is in like the mid-5s, and I'm just kind of bummed out at that, because I do think that this is one of the best slashers of the 2000s. And I think it's a damn shame that it does not get a little more recognition for what it is. And so they're on their way to a football game, and they have to pull over to the side of the road to sleep. And instead of sleeping, they decide to go on a full drinking bender, which I guess is, that's typical of kids. These guys are supposed to be in their early 20s or maybe late teens, I want to say. And it's just funny to me. They're like, oh man, I don't know, we got to pull over here, which they don't seem to be that far from where they're supposed to get to. Because when they leave later in the movie, in the morning when they wake up at 2:30, which isn't the morning obviously, but in the afternoon, they wake up at 2:30 in the afternoon, and then they think they can still make halftime of the game, and it's still broad daylight out, and they're stuck in traffic for a long while after having left there. There could only have been maybe 2 or 3 more hours at best. I would say maybe even less. So instead of just getting where they needed to go, they needed to pull over on the side of the road to camp, which they just so happen to have tents and camping stuff, I guess. But then they don't, and they decide to party for the next X amount of hours until they drink themselves into comatose states and wake up at 2:30 in the fucking afternoon. And they still decide to stay there after some freaking redneck ass hillbilly truck pulls up, sits there all creepily, and then Chad Michael Murray's character takes a bottle and throws it at the guy's car, which is a horrible idea, seeing as how they can't see who the fuck is in that car. This guy's already acting suspiciously, and I'm going to throw a bottle at his car, break his headlight, and then he's going to pull away. Who knows what could have happened there? Who knows who's in the car? Do any of you have a gun? I mean, I don't want to get too political here or too, close to reality, because we come here for escapism, but shit, man, we've had 3 mass shootings in the last 24 hours in this fucking country. And just watch this, and this guy just throws some beer bottle at a car that he knows nothing about, can't see at all. Was there 1 guy in it? Is there 4? Does he have a fucking gun? Does he have, what are you doing? What an idiot. And they do kind of, some of them, his sister at least is like, what are you doing? And then, his buddy is like, awesome, man, that was awesome. Oh, you're pretty badass. Somebody else says that as well. And it's like, I understand on the surface on how you think that's badass, but do you have any idea how many ways that could have went wrong? Even though he's pulling away from there, what do you think the odds are that he's going to return with his buddies and go to town on the, on the tourists that are who knows, on their land? He's like, oh, I didn't see any fences. Doesn't mean it ain't their land. They're just such idiot kids in that moment. And I'm like, you're just asking to get murdered. And then you just are like, without a care in the world, just go right back to partying and then fall asleep right in the same place as you threw a beer bottle at some freaking who knows whose car and just wait there for them to come back and fuck with you in your sleep. Like, these kids are such morons. But that isn't to say that's not true to life. You can sit here and be like, well, that's stupid. That's a stupid decision. How many stupid decisions did you make when you were in your teens or your early 20s when you were drunk? How many stupid decisions do you make right now, this weekend, when you were drunk? So to be like, oh, that's unrealistic, bullshit, that ain't unrealistic. I absolutely believe people would do that, but I'm still going to call them out for being morons. We got loud noise fake outs in this movie, the and it's like it's not really anybody. Oh, no, there's a huge negative of the movie. Don't do that. Stupid. Oh man, when Alicia, I don't know how the fuck to say this girl's first name. I think it's Eliza Cuthbert. But when she falls into that pit of roadkill and she sees a hand sticking up out of there and she's like, she can't get herself out of it because she just keeps slipping and her body's this way. I feel like she could have pushed her body one way or the other, but regardless on how they frame it and the way that it looks and just thinking about trying to get out of this pit of just disgusting, vile slaughter. Oh, bleh. And also to think that there was a human body in there, that would freak me the fuck out, man. I think it would freak anybody out. And then the redneck guy comes and he screws with them and he grabs the hand and then he offers them a ride to town. And they're, I get where they're coming from in one way, but they're a total dick to this guy. And it's not cool. Like what he does for them and how nice he is, and yes, you can get a little scared, but there's better ways to handle it than the way they did. And then she walks away after him realizing Sam Winchester's, I know that's not his real name, but that's how I'm going to refer to him here. He's like, oh man, now I kind of feel like a dick because town's right there. He wasn't lying. Like, uh-oh. And she's like, whatever, that guy was a fucking freak. And it's like, yeah, fucking freak that just drove you 12 miles, during his day when he just a total disregard. Just, oh, well, he creeped me out, even though I was completely wrong. I'm still going to consider him a fucking freak. Like, because the inside of his truck and what he does for a living doesn't appeal to what you know to be normal. I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way when she said it. And then she just keeps accusing her boyfriend of being an asshole, which, yeah, I don't care for her much as a girlfriend in this movie. I don't think she's the greatest. But at the same time, I don't think he's the greatest in some regards either. So I think they need to see other people. Although she's about to be single real soon here. And so they get into this town, and it's essentially a where is everybody town, which I'm a huge fan of. This is some Hobbs End kind of shit here. And they get in there and they go up to this church and they open the door and the guy's in there and he's like, what the hell? And he comes out and he berates them for interrupting this service. And then we find out later in the movie that no one in there was alive and they were all wax. There were people at one point, but they're now wax mannequins or whatever. I just thought that was great. I thought that the reveals of all the wax figures in this movie, in the houses and in the church and in the movie theater and all that stuff was fucking great and eerie as all hell. So really cool stuff there. And when she figures out that guy was actually the one who had the truck, I like the tension there when he comes up to the car and she immediately locks the door. And then he tries to break through and she turns the car on and floors it and puts it in reverse and drives it. Very smart. All really, really smart decisions there. And I like how she goes and she hides under the priest's robes when she's hiding in the church from him. I thought that was really cool. We got some really cool songs in here. It was nice to hear some Marilyn Manson. I was a big Marilyn Manson fan back when I was in high school around this. Although this was after my high school days, but this reminds me of my high school days, listening to Marilyn Manson. But good song by Manson here. We got a great My Chemical Romance song here, Helena, at the end of the movie during the credits. So some really cool songs. The snipping of her finger is a gnarly ass scene, man. She's sticking her finger up through the little drain there, and she's trying to get her brother's attention, and he just kind of turns around and blocks it, and then takes his little clippers and just ever so slightly just snips it right off, and the blood in the finger, and she brings it down, and it's just pouring blood. Fantastic. And then the boyfriend is taken, his eyebrows, everything's been taken off, and then he puts him in that machine, and then they find the body. The Bobby from Scary Movie comes and finds his body and tries to take the stuff off, and as he peels it away from his face, like the skin is gone and it's just falling apart, and then the killer comes and slices half of his face off here, and you can still see his teeth, and his eyes are moving and crying. Just cruel and scary. And is it believable? I don't care. Would he have died from this and all that? I don't care. It's still creepy as shit and awesome visually. So kudos to them on that. The whole house being made of wax kind of reminds me of like the Willy Wonka remake, where Willy Wonka makes that dude a whole house made out of chocolate, and it's like, the shit's gonna melt right at some point. Is it a ridiculous idea that the entire place and everything about it is made out of wax? Sure, where the hell is he getting all this wax and whatever? I don't care. It's still so cool. It's just such a cool part of it. The only thing that's kind of sucks a little bit about it is the dated effects at the end when the house is melting. Yes, they're a little cringy, but look at the time period. It's fine. It is what it is. It's a really elaborate idea, and I like when people just go for shit. It maybe has failed a little bit in execution because they didn't have the right technology at the time or whatnot, but I really, really enjoy the idea of all of it, and it actually plays really well towards the end of the movie when they're trying to get away and they can't get up the stairs because his feet are sticking in the wax, and the guy's like cutting through the doors that she's trying to block because they're made of wax, and they're ripping them apart, and they're falling through the floors, and the dead bodies are sinking into the ground, and everything's falling and collapsing, and the whole, the floor is starting to melt away. All of that looks fucking awesome. It's just that at the very end, when the real, destruction of the house and all the imploding and it's falling around, it's all on fire around, those effects are bad, but all the rest of him like trying to walk up the stairs, the body sinking into the floor and falling through and all that is awesome stuff. So I don't want to say that stuff looks bad. It's just some of the other visual shots that didn't work out that well. Another really gnarly kill is Paris Hilton's boyfriend in this, who has a knife in his neck. And usually just like a knife in the neck is no big deal. But then the killer just kind of walks by and on his pursuit after Paris Hilton and just decides to take his foot just really quickly and just slowly, like he makes a quick decision to just stand there for a second and just slightly like step on the knife and just like push it deeper down into the guy's neck. The way it's done, the way it looks is just gnarly. And it just walks away and goes after Paris Hilton, and she's trying to make her decisions on how to get away, and then he takes a freaking like pipe and throws it through the wind, the little windshields on the side windows there, and it goes through her head, and then she falls on it and it sticks her, and he takes like a video of it, which is really cool, and then he just pushes like her head through it and pulls the thing out. It's the best death in the movie. So if you're a Paris Hilton hater, then this should appeal to you in that regard, because you get to see her have the best death in the entire film. And it's a great kill, man. It's a great kill. So hell yeah on them for that, because all the kills in this movie are pretty fantastic. When he cuts the guy's head off, although it's not a huge initial payoff, because the head falls to the side and kind of just blinks a little bit. It's a fine decapitation, but it's later on when Chad Michael Murray finds him and he tries to save him, and he's like trying to pull his friend's head out of there, and it just breaks his head off because he'd already been pre-decapitated. Although Chad Michael Murray's character probably didn't know that, so there had to be a moment of like, oh my God, did I break his neck? Did I do this? Did I kill him? But the way like he just goes to move his friend's head and it just snaps his friend's head off is just brutal. And it's so good. Um, Now, an annoying part of this movie is that when they shoot the guy with the arrows and he's laying there unconscious, that they don't just finish the job. He's right there. He's unconscious. You've already shot him with 2 arrows. You know he's never going to stop pursuing you. You know he's going to continue to coming after you. You've got to put him down right then and there. And with as badass of a character as Chad, tries to emulate there, finish the job, buddy. All right, anyway. But I do like when the killer comes back to remove the arrows from his body, and he tries on the second one. He doesn't even get all of it out, but he tries on the second one, and he vomits into the sink from the pain. You don't see that very often. So I thought that was cool. Although, if he did come back, and they're in that tense situation of, holy shit, he's back, how do we get out of this situation? How about attack him while he's in the midst of trying to pull an arrow out of himself? Will be so distracted and in so much pain and so weak that he won't even be able to fight back. So as he's screaming there from trying to remove the arrow, go in and stab him in the back of the fucking head, or whatever you got to do, bash him over the back of the head, whatever. But he's so vulnerable in that moment, I don't feel like he's a threat anymore. And the other brother, the one who looks like the killer from Girl House, hasn't even really made his presence known all that much yet. So they would have thought that was really their main foe in that moment. So I don't understand why they didn't capitalize on him being so weak and vulnerable. But that's nor here nor there. Those are those tropes in movies. You just kind of got to go, well, now do I want to accept them? Do I think that they're acceptable? No, I don't. I think that there are ways around this in movies. But as I said, if you're going to watch horror, you're just going to have to sometimes go, well, if I want to like this movie, then I'm going to have to look past some of these things. And this movie doesn't have many, but like most, they have some. And it's just those some things. If there's too many, I'm not going to look past them, because then that's too much you're asking from me. But for this, it's like, oh, whatever. Like, it's just a couple things. And that's one of them. And then I love that Nick, there's Chad Michael Murray's character, Nick goes right after the killers when they come after him. Like, when she screams out, she rips her mouth open and she's able to get the glue off of her lips. She screams out, the guy goes to put a screwdriver in him, and he comes back, ducks him, punches him, and then goes over and locks himself in the gas station there and locks him out. He's really smart and he's really cool about all that. Yes, awesome, Nick. And then another moment in the movie when he's chasing him, then Nick stands there and he shoots him right as he comes out the door. So he actually waits for him to come out and shoots him. And then later, when he comes in the house and he sees him, he goes right at him and they start fighting again. He doesn't try to run away, he doesn't scream, he doesn't get scared. He runs right at him and starts fighting him on right. And it's badass, and he does it throughout the movie. He never is the victim in this. He's never the person who's hiding and scared. As soon as he sees him, for the most part, outside of the one time where he hides in the house, he's, because he just doesn't want to get into yet another fight. But once he knows there's no other choice, he always goes for the fight. And he ends up surviving, which is pretty rare in those situations as well. So, good stuff. And then she also takes the knife that's in his leg out of his leg to stab the killer and then have him fall into the basement of the place. Really cool stuff. And yeah, we find out that the third redneck guy, I guess she had some good intuition in there, gut instinct, because he was, or at least it is implied that he was the third brother from this family, and was in on it, which makes sense because he's the only third living person in that town. So he'd have to be related or in cahoots with them to some capacity, unless he lived in a different town on the way over and just never had any interactions. But I would think you would notice, if you lived around that town and you had been into that town, that everyone there is on display and dead. Although the wax figures, you don't know that they're actually people unless you were to break them apart. So I don't know. But yeah, what a fun movie. Just a fun movie. I really, really dig this one. And this is part of the Dark Castle series, which was, kind of short-lived. But it was a good flick, man. I really hope that this gets more recognition over the years because I think it's a pretty damn great slasher film of the 2000s. So, yeah, there you go. My thoughts on House of Wax. It's good to be back to Slasher Sunday. All right, guys. Adios.